God Eternal Oketra versus Animar Soul of Elements. Now we're on the play, so Knight of the White Orchid might not be as good, but if we miss land drops then we can at least get into one with that. So let's just lead off with the plains, and then we're probably going in for the Knight next turn. Animar Soul of Elements tends to be a very combo-centric commander. You can get down a lot of morph creatures with it as well. It has protection from white and black. It's a 1/1 for 3 in Teamer. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a plus counter on it. And creature spells cost 1 generic less to cast for each plus counter on it. Actually going to go for the Swiftfoot Boots here because it might be worth going for a Blade Splicer next turn. Yeah, we'll see what our opponent gets going. They might just want to drop 3 lands into Animar. Yeah, it looks like that might be what the aim is. So we'll drop our 3rd plains and go in for the Blade Splicer, I think. Blade Splicer will enter with a 3/3 Golem. Unfortunately, don't have the mana to give that haste. And she also gives our Golem creatures first strike. And we can get multiple Golems in play if we bounce Blade Splicer back to our hand and then keep replaying the Blade Splicer. Doesn't come up very often, but well, to speak of the devil, that's a Stone Cloaker. Now we can either play and equip the Swiftfoot Boots, or we can go for Stone Cloaker. I think I'm going to take a turn off here. We'll go for the Stone Cloaker and bounce the Blade Splicer back to our hand. So we'll leave the Golem token back this time. And then if our opponent goes up a land here, then the Knight of the White Orchid can help us into another land drop next turn. They get down a Temple of the False God, but they're still only on 3 mana. This only taps for 2 colourless if you control 5 or more lands. And there's a Coiling Oracle, so the Animar will get a plus counter. God Eternal Oketra is a 5 mana 3/6 with double strike. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you get a 4/4 black zombie token with vigilance. The Coiling Oracle does get our opponent into a fetch land, so they have 4 mana available now. That switches on Temple of the False God. And they get down an Oracle of Muldiah. So let's see how many lands they've got on the top. Well, there's 1. Oh, and then a Muldrifter next turn is only going to cost them 3 mana. And of course they're not swinging in with Animar because our Golem has first strike, so that would win that little bout. Let's go in for the Stone Cloaker. We can get rid of that fetch land. I don't think it's going to be relevant, but you can make use of a fetch land in the graveyard if you have something like Crucible of Worlds out. We'll bounce back the Blade Splicer. And, wow, still not getting into lands. I think we're falling too far behind here. Let's go for Knight of the White Orchid to sort our land out. We get a plains there, and then I think we put a stop on the upkeep so that we can Enlighten Tutor during our next turn. Let's go Skull Clamp now. And then we'll just put that on Knight of the White Orchid. If they want to throw some creatures into the red zone, then we can chump block with that and get a couple of cards drawn. Just going to hit our opponent in the air for 3 and then pass the turn now. Okay, luckily not getting into 2 lands off the top with Oracle of Muldiah. Although I don't think they're really struggling for mana now. And there's a Guardian Project. Whenever a non-token creature enters under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control, then draw a card. So they will draw into that Eternal Witness. And luckily again, not getting into any more lands for the Oracle. But they play 2 lands from their hand anyway. So they're down to 4 cards in hand. Oh, and that's curious that they didn't hard cast the Muldrifter, they just went for the evoke cost on that. Okay, Nikya will keep them from casting non-creature spells, so the Conjurer's Closet on top of the library will be useless to them. A Burnished Heart comes down for free, because our opponent's creatures cost now 6 generic less to cast. Tender Shoot Dryad's a really cool card. I've never used it in a deck, but might have to make a multiplayer Gave deck or something like that because I really like Tender Shoot Dryad. And a free Solemn coming down as well. They're down to 3 cards in hand, but I imagine they can get into anything they like. Yeah, the Wormcoil Engine definitely comes down for free. And they're just pretty much playing like a blue deck does and getting a lot of cards off the top of the library. Oh, and I forgot all about the protection from white and black. Oh, that feels bad. We're just going to have to chump with the Golem token in that case. Wish I put the Skull Clamp on there now. And the Tender Shoot Dryad throws out a Saproling token at the beginning of each upkeep, which is why it's really good in multiplayer. And they do have the City's Blessing, which gives it +2/+2. So that's actually a free 3/3 Saproling. Now, it's at times like this that I really wish I had Engineered Explosives or some kind of artifact mass board wipe that we could go for with Enlightened Tutor, but unfortunately we don't have anything like that, so let's just go for the Enlightened Tutor into a Mana Crypt, I think. We've just been way too slow on mana compared to our opponent, so this will just be a quick one to show off how good Animar is, I think. Let's get down the Blade Splicer again, and this time we'll put the Skull Clamp on the correct creature. And we'll Swiftfoot Boots the Golem as well, just so they can't remove it before swinging him. And then hopefully it's duplicate next turn. I imagine we're going to be drawing some cards thanks to the Golem and the Swiftfoot Boots. So let's just F6 through the turn here. And there's a Primal Surge on top. I use this in an elf deck. Eternal Witness grabs back the Muldrifter. Guardian Project is doing a lot of work in this game. There's a land on top. I'm not sure if they've played both of their lands with Oracle of Muldiah now, but they're just going for the card draw anyway. And they evoked it again. They're not wanting to spend their mana. There's a Stroke of Genius, another card they can't play. They can't play it because Nikia says you can't cast non-creature spells, but your lands tap for 2 mana instead of 1. Burnished Heart to shuffle the library, they get into another non-creature spell. I'm surprised they're playing Nikia if they're running this many non-creature spells. Alright, now it's time to get into the red zone. Let's see what our opponent swings in with here. Definitely the big commander. And then it's 14 if we let the rest through. I don't think we need a Stonecloaker, do we? So let's throw that there. And then it's just 8 damage, so yeah, I think that is better. Let's go for that. Argument to be made for blocking everything really, because we are aiming for a board wipe here, which we are not going to draw into apparently. White Mane Lion is good with our commander, but apparently we're not going to be getting into enough mana to get that going this game. I think we just have to kill off the Blade Splicer with the Skull Clamp. We'll draw a couple more cards with that. Alright, Teferi's Protection gets us into another turn. So let's just go up a mana with the Marble Diamond. I was debating whether or not to go for Disenchant onto Guardian Project, but I don't think we really need to bother with that just yet. The board state is only going to get even worse from here. So let's just wait for our opponent to swing in. Yeah, another non-creature spell on top of the library that our opponent can't cast. So I'm wondering how many... I haven't really kept track because I kind of gave up on this game, to be honest. I'm just wondering how many non-creature spells they actually have in hand now. Alright, and now we go into Teferi's Protection, and we'll see if there's any counter magic. This will have the game treat us as though we don't exist, and therefore don't take any damage whatsoever. And that sees us through for another turn. Although I somehow doubt it's going to help. Yeah, just a Mind Stone. They're not going to block if we swing in with a clamped Knight of the White Orchid. And I don't think we're going to survive through another turn, but let's go for Angel of Invention. And we'll make a couple of servos with that. And then we're going to have to clamp the Angel. Okay, there's a Sol Ring, so now we can clamp both of those servos. Just doing this for the fun of it now. I think our opponent smashes straight through us next turn. Yeah, and at least we know we were nowhere near a board wipe. So let's just throw it back over to our opponent and allow them to get on with it. And our opponent is noticing that Nikya has really hampered them in their playing of the deck, as we noticed. Let's just get rid of a load of stuff from our hand, and then we're just F6ing yet again, and allowing our opponent to go straight through for lethal on us. Let's see how much damage they can deal here. And noteworthy that our opponent's being very respectful here and just going straight into the attacks. Some people will just continue to play, even though they know they've got you beat, but our opponent didn't do that. They went straight in for the attack and got us down to -32. Good game to our opponent. That is exactly how Animar tends to run. Very, very good commander. And we didn't even see God Eternal Oketra this game. So I am going to play another one, and you will see that momentarily. God Eternal Oketra versus Kresh the Bloodbraided. And I actually like that hand quite a lot, so we'll definitely keep that. We can get into our commander pretty quickly, so let's get down a tap land and pass it over to our opponent. Yeah, so what are we in for next turn? That's an Ancient Tomb into Mind Stone, into Intangible Virtue maybe? Yeah, we can't get down our commander next turn, so I think we just set up like that. Oreskos Explorer. We might need, we've only got 2 lands in hand, we might need that. Let's go for the Mind Stone into the Intangible Virtue. That will give our tokens +1/+1 and Vigilance. The zombies already have Vigilance that God Eternal Oketra creates when we cast a creature spell. But the +1/+1 buff is nice. We do have other tokens in the deck, so the Vigilance on those is often relevant. She is a 5-mana zombie god with double strike, a 3/6. And when she dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. Sometimes make use of that, because getting into card draw in mono white isn't the easiest thing. Oh, and a Demonic Tutor. I never like seeing a Demonic Tutor from my opponent, but at least it's in the early game. They might be going for some kind of ramp with that. Kresh the Bloodbraided is a 5-mana Jund commander, a 3/3. Whenever another creature dies, you may put X plus counters onto Kresh, where X is that creature's power. Alright, another land, so that means that we can go for... Are they expecting a God Eternal Oketra? Well, even if they are, we'll go for it right now. And then, is there any more mana in the top 2 cards of our library? I'm just wondering if they are going to remove it. They might have gone for removal with the Demonic Tutor. Alright, just getting down a Thespian Stage. Good for our opponent for playing this out. Oreskos Explorer. Do we just want to get that down? We can get it back with a Sun Titan if it dies, and it'll give us a zombie token. If they've got removal for God Eternal Oketra, then they're probably going to do it when she attacks in anyway, so we might as well take our chance and get a zombie token right now. And we won't get any lands from the Oreskos Explorer, but we're not struggling on lands this game anyway, so we'll just get down that Windbrisk Heights. Let's see what we can put underneath that with the hideaway. Anointed Procession, I think, is better. Actually, let's go for an Hour of Reckoning under that. Destroy all non-token creatures. If we're swinging in with a lot of creatures, then this thing might be relevant. Let's go in at our opponent for 6 commander. If we get some global Anthem effects, then that will obviously buff our God Eternal Oketra, and that means that we can actually just hit our opponent 3 times as opposed to the 4 times it would normally take to take our opponent down with 21 points of commander damage. Now, as far as I can tell, our opponent's in a pretty rough spot here, because if they get down a creature to chump with, we can get rid of it with Palace Jailer. And that will serve 2 purposes. It will remove a creature from blocking, but it'll also introduce the Monarchy. And that's a pretty good way of getting into card draw in mono white. The Thespian Stage copied an Ancient Tomb, by the way, our Ancient Tomb. So that might get them into their commander. Oh, and there's a Defense of the Heart. Yeah, that's at the beginning of your upkeep. If an opponent controls 3 or more creatures, then you sacrifice it, search for 2 creatures and put them onto the battlefield. This doesn't get rid of that, does it? No, it's just a creature. That's a shame to potentially lose to a Defense of the Heart. That's one of those cards that's just absolutely busted. I think it might be worth cracking the Mind Stone to search for an answer to that. Now, Smothering Tithe is something to do at least, but yeah, and a Panharmonicon. Let's just get down the plains, and then is Hour of Reckoning worth going for? We have to swing in with 3 or more creatures. So what we could do is swing in and then cast the Hour of Reckoning from underneath the Windbrisk Heights. That's an idea. Let's just get in for some damage first. And then we can go for Smothering Tithe. And we'll use the Windbrisk Heights to cast the Hour of Reckoning. We'll just put our God Eternal Oketra into the command zone. And there we go. Just 2 more hits from that zombie warrior and our opponent's down. They can get their Kresh into play. Now, the reason that I did that, I didn't obviously like doing that, but the Defense of the Heart people often play this to get a 2-card combo on the go, something like Triskelion and what's he called, Machias the Unhallowed. I don't run Defense of the Heart because I think it's a really boring and cheap way to win a game. It's pretty much 1-card combo in a lot of scenarios, like Tooth and Nail, that type of thing. So oftentimes, if you see Defense of the Heart, that's something that you absolutely need to play around, because they can get a 2-creature combo out of their deck and straight onto the field, and that means it's lights out for you a lot of the time. Lotus Petal, just more mana for our opponent. They're at least going to have to be careful with that Ancient Tomb, because it will deal 2 damage to them if they tap it for the 2 colourless. I'm just hoping they get down their commander here. They have decided to go for the Ancient Tomb, and they've got down even more mana in a Soul Ring. It looks like their mana's come too late for them. If they get down their Kresh, is that another Pain Land, by the way? Yes, it is. So, they can still generate mana for their commander with the Firelit Thicket. But we've got an answer to that in our Palace Jailer. Yep, they get down Kresh. Now, do they have removal for the Zombie Warrior? No, it's a Phyrexian Dreadnought. That is going to put a lot of plus counters onto Kresh the Bloodbraided, because as soon as Phyrexian Dreadnought comes out, it dies. And that puts 12 plus counters onto Kresh. We played this a lot in Lazav the Multifarious, for any of you that were around towards the beginning of the channel. Did a hell of a lot of work with Phyrexian Dreadnought. Alright, let's go Plains. And we'll get ourselves into a Palace Jailer to get rid of our opponent's commander. I might see a concession here, because we're going to exile their commander, go in at them for 5, and then they are going to find it very difficult to come back from that, I think. We become the Monarch, which means at the end of our turn we draw a card, but if anyone hits us with a creature, then they become the Monarch. Might as well get down the Panharmonicon. Don't think it's going to be of any relevance, but we will put it down anyway. Swinging at our opponent for 5. And they need something really big now. And we could really punish them with a Wasteland by getting rid of their Stomping Ground. Or the Golgari Rot Farm would be better, actually. And yeah, they concede to that. That's obviously fair enough. We're going to swing in at them next turn for lethal. And they played it out anyway, even when they saw the Palace Jailer, so kudos to them for that. We got to see some cool tech there with the Phyrexian Dreadnought. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone play that with Kresh. So that was good to see. Hope you all enjoyed it. God Eternal Oketra versus Kresh the Bloodbraided. I'm Tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.